Hey guys, this is Donna French for Object-Oriented Programming at Full Sail, and I'm going to be going over constants and static variables. First on the list is variables are the foundation of all Flash applications, really for any kind of application. They're used all throughout any kind of programming language you're going to run across. And basically, they're just a name container for information. Probably one of the easiest ways for me to think of it is if people didn't have names. If we were, nobody had a name, then if I hollered, hey Mike or hey Joe or whatever, then, you're not going to know who you're talking about. So this just takes your data, whether it be numbers or a string or whatever, and gives it a name so that you can reference back to that without calling the actual, number or whatever it is. They have their own distinct data type, which means you have to assign each variable as number, string, array, whatever it may be. It must contain letters and numbers only. Can't begin with a number, and no spaces or special characters are allowed. You can use underscores or dollar signs, or a combination of both. Here's some examples of static variables. You'll see different naming conventions. That's basically just a matter of preference. Just depends on the individual. And what I like to do is try to stay within the same naming convention, but with a group of programmers, that's always not going to be the case. Not going to be possible to go around and ask each individual person what kind of naming convention they use for their variables. And here's how we set up a static variable. I've got you a couple examples of a string and a couple with a number. Just different ways to implement that based on what you prefer as far as a naming convention. And next up, here's what your constant variable would look like. Notice that it's in all caps and normally uses an underscore. That just sets it apart from a regular variable. That way, at a glance, you can tell that that's a constant. And here's the way to set those up as far as implementing inside your code. Basically the same, but you are going to use const to differentiate that it is a constant. Remember, all uppercase when you're naming those. You still going to set your data type, and basically everything else is going to be the same. Let's go over here and look at a couple of coding examples using both of those. And the first one we're going to do is going to be a static variable. And we're just going to set that up using the var. We're going to use score as our example here. And we're going to set that to 500 just to give you guys something to look at. And basically, we're setting that number to 500, but really it could be anything. That could even relate back to another variable itself. But let's just see. We're gonna use an if statement and just say if that score is less than 2500, then we're gonna trace out and say that was a low score. Else, let's just say that score was greater than or equal to 2500. We're just going to trace out and say that was a high score. Forgot my semicolon up there. Okay, and we're just going to run that. And we'll look at our result down here. And we got low score. We can test that. Let's just test it and do a 2500. Let me get this out of the way. And just as we wrote, we're getting a 2500. Let's go ahead and bump that up a little bit just to make sure our code is working. And it's still high score. The main thing is that score can change, and if you think of this in context of, you know, a group of programmers working on something, that score would have to be referenced back to throughout the program, but it's going to change. So that would probably be a variable as well, but I think you get the picture here. Let's take a look at constants. Let's go ahead and set some of those up here. And I'm going to set up one other static just to demonstrate how the constants work. And what I'm going to be using, you could think of as say if we had our lighting for our home set on a timer, and it looked at the time to determine what setting to put the lighting on. That way, if you're not at home or whatever, that it would automatically set your lighting. And in a wider sense, these settings can be changed if let's just say there were different settings that we could use. Say 4, 5, and 6 were also available, but we weren't real sure where we wanted to set them, but we knew the times. Let me show you what I mean here. These are our constant variables, okay? All uppercase, using the const to let, you know, action script know that we're using a constant. And we're going to go down here and we're going to say, okay, if the time of day is greater than 8 a.m. and less than 6 p.m., then we're going to set the lighting to low. Else, if the time is greater than 6 p.m. but before 10 p.m., we're going to set the lighting to medium. And otherwise, we're just going to set the lighting. Nope. Let's do that on high. To medium. Okay. Now, how would this help us? Number one, those variables most likely are not going to change, but we know for certain they're not going to change within runtime while our program is running, okay? Why is this more beneficial? Because once those are set, it's pretty much a done deal. Let me see. Let's just test these out, make sure they're working. Okay, our lighting is set to 1 because we set our time at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's set to low, which is equivalent of 1. But let's just say that we had, say we were managing a bunch of different houses as part of their security package, and we noticed that that high setting was working better for them, or customers were complaining and saying that, the medium is too low and we need to bump that up a little bit. Then we can just change it in one place here to a greater scale. So we need to make that a 4. We need to make this one a 6, but the low was fine for everybody. So we change that in one place where that's a constant variable, and then all through the program, anywhere that's referenced goes to this. It helps me to think of things on a bigger scale and see where I might be able to save time. It's going to save more memory. It's going to save us more processing power, and it's just more efficient. It's more efficient to go in there and set that number one time rather than going back through the whole list. And I think that should give you a good idea of constants versus static variables. Thanks.